Welcome to today's reading. We are using the Eternal Crystals Oracle cards and the Mystic Mondays Tarot deck for today's messages. Now, first of all, this is paint because I am painting my apartment pink. But number two, we need to go over all the cards up front so that we can get to these messages because there's a lot of them, okay? So our Oracle cards for today, we have, again, Tiger Eye, 39, that narrows down to a 3. Animals in solar plexus chakra, paired with another green heart chakra crystal. This time it's green aventurine, number 5, and new opportunities. Now for our tarot cards, I asked the question of what is coming into our field? What are we inviting into our field right now? 3 of Pentacles, 8 of Cups, and the Judgment. The last question I asked was, what's influencing this right now? What's influencing this invitation? Star card in reverse, paired with the 9 of Pentacles upright. Self-preservation. And what we automatically do in order to survive. Okay? So the first message that is coming up right now is code switching. Code switching. Because this 3 of Pentacles is screaming system of hierarchy. And hierarchies usually mean that there's a few who are in power, right? And I do feel like the code switching is just the awareness of how we perform, suppress, repress, celebrate, make ourselves known, make ourselves unknown within these boundaries and outside these boundaries. What it is that we're willing to do to access certain resources. What it is that we are willing to do to access certain resources. What parts of us must we move away from or lean towards in order for us to have access to this system. On the other hand, it's about like the self-preservation by way of like, not because we necessarily want to conform, but because we know that we need access to that resource. So for example, money and jobs, because I feel something like S work is coming up here. I also hear healthcare providers. S work to healthcare provider pipeline is relevant for some of y'all. But like, for instance, S work and what is necessary for the performance? What do we have to present? What do we have to disconnect with? What, as a healthcare provider, what do we have to present? What parts of us do we have to disconnect with in order for us to operate within these boundaries? I do hear that for some of you, like, it's like this decision paralysis or this code switching that we have to do. Sometimes it may feel dehumanizing because there's like I'm seeing like, this is about awareness of like our triggers, that automatic nature, that instinctual that we talked about like before, and that automatic that's coming up here. It's like, again, what we're willing to do to survive, because this, whatever the system is for you, there's this aspect of it that feels like you're protected or you're safe until. Like your engagement with it is to survive. But it comes at a cost. Immediately I hear like accessibility of your resources. Time and energy and spirit. You know, even how you celebrate is like a resource. But I feel like if there's like membership fees, for some of us, we can't control our connection to the system. But where we find ourselves code switching, or we find ourselves having to disconnect with a part of ourselves to be here, it's like the membership fee might be compliance. It might be silence. It might be agreeing to be the scapegoat. What do we automatically do to survive? And there's this, I feel like there's a desire to stop doing this, to stop operating under pressure, or so much pressure, to really look at not just the system, but the policies and the protections of these policies. Let me go back to the S-work and the healthcare providers, because this duo here, especially Tiger Eye, is like broadcasting, and reinventoring is new opportunity, new data, new information. This is information that I feel like it's break the fourth wall, right? We're kind of stepping out of this for a moment to really communicate what it is that we're seeing. These are your options here. Now, to hear that in a space like a clinic or a hospital, having more options can be scary for a lot of people, because a lot of people are kind of looking for one solution, right? But I feel like we're in the space to where we actually do want to explore more options. We want to explore more than this or that. Okay, so we can be talking to people about what our options are. And if it feels overwhelming, okay. You know what I mean? But I encourage you to communicate, I'm feeling overwhelmed from having so many options. Say it. Say the thing. Say the thing for yourself. That's broadcasting. That's breaking the performance. That's breaking the walls here. That's allowing yourself to like emotionally mature and be seen between. Let the unraveling be seen. And with the S-work and healthcare providers, it's like people are talking about what it takes to actually function in certain fields. They're talking about how it works. And a lot of you, the new opportunities is the new information for you to decide, do I actually want to do this? Do I actually want to do that? Do I actually want to experience this? Do I really need to go down this path? Or what's telling me I don't want to do it when this is something that keeps coming back to me? A lot of that information is going to be coming through clients, listening to the people who are in the system, paying attention to the stories, paying attention to the resources available, legislation, laws, anything that is related to this. You're learning more about this. I'm going to use the example of like patriarchy here, because patriarchy, it requires, like I'm in the United States, okay, so I'm speaking from that perspective. It requires for like men to constantly perform it. Okay, I remember a time where it was no homo after every other sentence, right? And it evolved into pause, because the performance of masculinity is never ending for a man who wants to make sure he feels safe within a particular system like patriarchy, because that means then he gets access to certain resources. For some people, women are resources, okay? But he gets access to resources, constantly performing, constantly appearing a certain way, making sure that you don't share your grievances. You don't talk about that tower that came before this. Invisible, shut it off. Show your feathers. You engage in this kind of mating dance. You hear me? You see, it's like we're safe until. And then because of that, we might have certain triggers when we see people living a different life, living in a queer way. But we might be learning that having more options is what is creating more freedom, It's not threatening. Anybody who was like in a really tightly wound organization, or let's just say like a cult, anyone who was left that, they are like prime example of surviving and just deciding to break out of that. Because not everybody who leaves stays out. Some people do return, but there are people who are just adamant about, I'm never going back. Listen to their stories. Listen to the systems at play. Listen to the rules. Listen to the decision paralysis that's required. That is required. You hesitating to choose it. Listen to those like types of stories where people feel like they had to disconnect from what they really wanted or themselves in order to gain access to whatever this system was offering. Pay attention to the membership fees. And for some of you are actually looking at literal membership fees. Because if this is talking about getting the heart pumping and circulation, we could be talking about like pumping iron too. Okay, some of you do need to take more iron. Vitamins are important. But if this is a membership fee to a gym, membership fee to like a recreational center, like maybe there's a local one, or maybe there's community activities, like the community, if you want to get together with the community instead of like being inside all the time and seeing the benefit of being inside but also connecting with people, it might be that you got to get out. You got to get out, right? And you got to show yourself. Let's do a group community walk on Friday nights, right? It's like, let's be out together. Let's do some neighborhood bike rides through the city, or let's have some new habits. I feel like some of you are just tired of automatically, having a reaction to things that you don't want to keep anymore. Or you are so much better at working with the currency of your energy that you're starting to notice more of what actually, like again, going back to identifying your triggers and transforming it in a way that works for you and creating a new habit out of that. And kind of going back to code switching, if we're looking at things like genetics and DNA or genes, we're looking at that. We might be trying to source like our identity, what our bloodlines, that pump, you see the bloodlines, what we're about, learning more about language, that broadcasting, learning more about how to, again, connect with certain organizations and function within it, and then be able to know how to rest, because the space outside here could be indicating rest. All right. If we are doing, the testing comes up, and we could be testing, hold on. Some of y'all gonna have a come to Jesus moment, like with your healthcare provider. And this is not to be scared. I think they're just gonna, it's like they're gonna break the wall, like the fourth wall here, and be like, listen. The results are showing something else, okay? What's really going on? And I feel like we have an opportunity to draw in a chance to break this identity of having to do everything alone or having to be quiet, and move towards somebody who is being more visible. You have a chance to do that. You have a chance to really understand more of what the system requires of you, which means you can understand how to break it as well. And then that person even doing that, if it's a healthcare provider or someone who just sees you, them breaking that and doing that for you, that can also be just that's the new opportunity. Like, oh, there's people are actually doing that. That's just not something you see on like in the media, or something that you hear somebody else goes through. No, you are given opportunities to speak up as well. People are looking at you. They're not looking at you as prey all the time. They actually do want to help you. So the idea of going back to health and testing, it's not always about trying to self-preserve out of fear. We're self-preserving because we know we can gain access to resource. So this Three of Pentacles can be talking about a job. And if there's policies, strict policies, maybe that's not a bad thing. Because for instance, OSHA, right? You want to have protections in place if you're going to be working with your body, using your body right? You do want there to be policies in place and protections of those policies in place so that you can be safe operating in this system. I am hearing like collecting specimens, so like urine samples or drug testing. There is like a period of waiting for, like, there's like a turnaround time. While you're waiting for a decision, an external decision, again, don't forget to pay attention to the space in between. Don't forget to prioritize the rest that is required in order to be receptive, in order to be vulnerable, in order to adopt a new identity that is more suited to you being able to breathe more freely. Because the truth is like, we do attach to identities. You know, when we're practicing, like, you know, presence, of course, from that divine state, we are not attached to anything. But when we are in the game performing, right, we still have awareness. And adopting certain identities is not a problem. In fact, again, with code switching, I'm hearing like with the animals, I immediately think of animals that also mimic voices. Because we can talk about broadcasting, roaring, barking, right? But there's also mimicry. That's not always a bad thing. This could be talking about, some of you are really good actors, but maybe you're scared of acting because of a system, like maybe a family system. Maybe there's something regarding health, like what goes, like automatically there's switching, or like switching that can happen, and like personalities. But I'm getting like, don't let that discourage you. Maybe taking those personalities that have switched so much around you and channeling that into a story, to writing, into performance art, into that stage play. Working with those identities, maybe even expressing that you're holding up many identities. I'm wearing so many different hats right now. And maybe you try to hide the stress, but it's showing. It's showing in some way. You're trying to hide the fear, but it's showing. Someone who can read your energy really well clocks you for it. And I feel like a lot of you are going to be thankful that they did, because that's the new opportunity. I have a chance to finally let that shit out, to release that stuff. And with the 8 here, this can be a consistent space. This can be a new habit of expression. This can take you from point A to that point B that you kept feeling in your bones. You see more clearly. And the more you see clearly, the more people got to see you clearly too. Identifying your triggers is a skill. So that means having triggers isn't a problem. We're in a human body that is supposed to react. That's why we have senses. But we've been so conditioned to react to negative things. But if your body, is like responding and do, it's because it's, you know what I'm gonna say? It's because it's working. But when you feel like things aren't working, or when you feel like there's something wrong, we also naturally have the reaction to want to survive. So say that we do know what the pressure points are. We do know what is promoting us to seek help. What is promoting for us to even say out loud, I need help right now. I need help moving on. I need help unclearing this blockage. That is you choosing to operate outside of the system. That's you choosing to rest. Allowing the load or the labor to be distributed appropriately. And that's why I think some of you who believe code switching and I guess like maybe for like socioeconomic access, or like just code switching to survive in certain environments, like immigrants definitely do it, but people, anyway, right? If you're doing that, I feel like there's a part of you that is like, I don't want to be in a space where I have to keep doing this. I don't want to have to keep showing up in a way where this decision paralysis, even if it happens for a split second, has to be there. We could even be looking at the type of relationships that we want to have, or the type of family that we want to create, be it through like somewhat traditional means, or the family that we want to have. I think we might be looking at identity, who we want in our spaces, because of our triggers, because of how we automatically react. I know that's actually really it's kind of controversial, a little bit, because it's about like, oh, who I feel safe with, who I don't. But then this is where the new opportunities come in, where it's like, you are still the observer. You have the ability to check where that reaction or that judgment comes from, and where that need for self-preservation, what's influencing this? And is it working for you or against you in this moment? Are you even saying that it has to be working for you or against you in this moment? You know, like the energy of clicks, and you kind of like saying, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. You see how it kind of goes from from 3 to 2 here. Even 2, like from 3 to 2. It's narrowing down. And again, I feel like if it's not just about being aware of more options, it could be reducing our options. Reducing our options of access, or just outright like reducing our options when it comes to, if that 3 of Pentacles is an activity such as dating, we might be more strict. We might have more protocols, okay? And we might put protections for those protocols in place, like your emergency contacts, or the way that you want to travel to and forth. You might just be more situated with, you might be more situated with where you are now. That new opportunity is right there with the animals. I feel like there's this sense of detachment. Like you're willing to, like, you understand what membership fee is required, or what's expected, like in like the dating scene. Like you understand that. So you also understand how to show up in many ways. But some of you are deciding to do it in your own way now. You're deciding to paint your nails. You're deciding to do gender affirming like haircuts, or just participate in like gender affirming care. You're willing to get the piercing, get the tattoo. You're willing to just express yourself in a more instinctual, automatic way, which also means you're willing to put yourself first and take care of yourself too. So for those of you who have been feeling a lot of stress in your environment, be it from relationships or like work, and say, I do think that there is like this, no more. Like I need to really get serious about making a different decision. So this is about kind of rooting yourself in what your new policies are. Noticing these things about yourself and creating new forms of automation. And speaking of automation, even AI in itself is like a very controversial subject matter. And if any of you like say that when it comes to sprucing up your resume, maybe even like trying to editing something that you wrote yourself, or even just the creation of anything, if any of you have been sitting on the fence about integrating AI in your life, you're already using it now because the algorithm, right? There's so many things, right? When it's heated for me in these discussions, because listen, I have a Sag rising, okay? I like those tussles, right? Especially those like philosophical tussles. I love those, right? But whenever like it comes up for me, I encourage people to like explore AI, because it can operate as relief. It can operate as relief because it can take the workload off of your plate in appropriate ways. In appropriate ways, okay? It can. And when it gets heated for me, at a certain point, I tell the person, go find an abacus. Go fight a sundial. Go fight a phone, you know, on behalf of photographers everywhere. You see, there's another way. There's another way. There's another way that we can experience this in our life, because look, it's not going away. If you see these panels as AI, it's like it's going to evolve, whether you're moving this direction or this. It's not going away. It's on the path, right? But how do we want to integrate something like that? I think if you're wondering how to automate certain things in your life, you can use AI as an assistant. But know your policies, know your limits, know what you're willing and what you're not willing to do, and understand that if you use AI at all, there's going to be people who are judgmental about it. But think about the availability of options you have, and if you're quick to condemn it, that usually means look at it, right? So with that being said, if you made it this far, this is a very specific message. There's some of you who trying to get back into moving, like, you know, and this is with music. This is regarding music, okay? You're a really good DJ, okay? You're a really good dancer. You're a really good singer, performer. You're really good, you know, you're really good. You're doing something regarding music, sound, okay? And I feel like just put it out there, okay? Just put it out there. Get used to creating content. Stop, don't judge yourself. Participate in the system, notice what your triggers are, and understand that there will always, there are certain things that you can't control, right? That's outside of this, right? But continue to build your content, continue to build on what you've already created, to build on what you already know how to do, okay? I heard something that you can't hide forever. Sorry, you're too talented. Too bad, okay? Speak up in that way. You're really good with music, okay? Really good artist. Somebody or some people, some folks needed to hear that. You're really, really good with music, okay? If you made it this far, okay, just do the thing. Upload the thing, create the content. And I dare say, call yourself the musician now. Okay? Call yourself the musician now. And as you're learning about who this musician is, they would know their triggers. They would also be open to making sure that they have the space to be able to explore this expression, because they want to create new automatic responses to creation. All right. So finally, with that being said, I thank you so much for joining me. I intend that this was helpful. I intend that this was that it influenced you to be more vulnerable in a productive way, to be more open to asking for help, or to even becoming visible, because it is your time to shine. But knowing how to navigate in these spaces, educating yourself about you and how you are in these spaces is going to be really, really important for you to stay as level-headed as possible, as you remember that you are greater than whatever identity you're harboring, because you're the observer, that you're divine, but also remember you're having a human experience, and that your senses are working, all right? And that your body is going to talk to you too, so listen to it. So please do your best to keep the faith. I love you very much. I appreciate you. And until next time, bye-bye.